Fragile on the outside, but with eyes carrying contained strength. Insecure inside, but with the firmness of someone who decided not to stay silent anymore. That figure approaching the courthouse was not just any lawyer or complainant, it was Britney Spears. For the first time since the end of judicial control over her life, she wasn't presenting herself as a pop star, but as someone who survived a structure designed to silence her. And what she revealed there about Diddy, about the eve of the 2007 VMAs, about Elle Taylor and Robin Greenhill, was like an electric shock that went through the room. The audience expected a story about musical backstage, maybe some show controversy. But what Britney brought was something much deeper, a denunciation of betrayal, of systematic manipulation, of a scheme mounted to psychologically destroy her. And who was at the center of all that, according to her, a man who never imagined that the secrets of that night would come to light. The industry trembled. The courthouse fell into absolute silence, and what Britney said under oath could change everything. Before continuing, it's worth remembering that stories like this require time, responsibility, and great care to be investigated and told with precision. So if this content is being useful to you, don't forget to leave your like, share it with someone who needs to know the truth, and subscribe to the channel. With your support, we can keep revealing the backstage that many want to hide. Throughout the week, prosecutors had hinted that a surprise witness might appear, but nobody imagined it would be her. When Britney entered the room, the sound of her heels was muffled by the carpet, head down, but firm step. The judge interrupted what he was saying. Diddy's lawyers looked at each other, visibly worried. Holmes himself shifted in his seat, whispering to his lawyer. Britney didn't even look at him, at least not at that moment. She sat in front of the microphone, interlaced her fingers in her lap, and took a deep breath. The superstar image, carefully constructed over decades, was no longer there. In its place, a woman marked by time, by struggle, and by scars the public never saw. When she approached the microphone, her voice came out hesitant, but with enough firmness to make everyone hold their breath. I spent my life being instructed to stay quiet, supposedly to protect me, but that was never true. And now, I'm not going to stay silent anymore. In that instant, the room froze. Even the journalist's cell phone stopped vibrating. It wasn't just another famous man who crossed Diddy's path. It was another piece affected by a system that, according to her, operates in the shadow of fame. And it all began, Britney recounted, the night before her iconic and controversial presentation at the 2007 VMAs. She was invited to a party organized by Diddy. They told her it would be something quiet, just a meeting with other artists, open bar, nothing out of the ordinary. But she soon realized that that night would be nothing ordinary. She had planned to leave early, rest for the presentation that would mark her return to the stages. But someone put a champagne glass in her hand. Diddy smiled and said, "Just one, you'll be fine." That was the last moment Britney claimed to remember clearly. After that, everything became a blur. The music became distant, voices seemed like echoes, the environment spun, my thoughts became slow. I remember lights, people laughing, and then nothing more. When waking up, the next day, it wasn't a hangover what she felt, it was something different, deeper, darker. Her body was strange, heavy, as if it didn't respond well. Fragmented memory. Still, she was pushed to the stage as if everything was normal. The order was clear. The show must go on. The jurors moved in their chairs, visibly affected by what they heard. Diddy kept his gaze fixed on the floor. Today, I understand, that wasn't a party, it was a trap. That glass was the beginning of everything. With each phrase, Britney made clear that the event in Las Vegas hadn't been improvised. In her vision, everything was carefully planned. An ambush to weaken her before the entire world. He had already chosen me as the next target, and I didn't even imagine it. She remembered the place pure nightclub at Caesar's Palace. Flashes everywhere, artists having fun, almost celebrating her 21st birthday in a reserved area, and Diddy at the center of the scene, directing everything like a master of ceremonies. He watched me all the time, offered me drink after drink, told the others to respect me, but it wasn't respect, it was a game. I felt like a figure on display. According to her, Diddy wasn't the only one involved. Industry people were present, some with direct relation to Tristar, the same company that years later would control her conservatorship. Among them, Robin Greenhill. Britney said that at that time she didn't know who Robin was, but never forgot her face. It was Robin who led her to a private lounge next to Diddy. Shortly after, everything became dark. I trusted them. I thought I was safe, but I wasn't protected. I was delivered. She related that after a single glass, she didn't feel drunk. It was different. Her perception moved away from reality. My vision became blurry. I could barely think. I lost my balance. Someone whispered, "It's done," and then I heard laughter. The next day, she felt that something had happened, something nobody wanted to admit. They told me I was exaggerating, but I knew something was wrong. I still know it. For Britney, everything was part of a bigger process, a kind of ritual to destabilize her publicly and open the way to the control that would come later. And Diddy was at the center of everything. When she arrived at the VMAs that Sunday, she still hadn't recovered from what happened. She was dizzy, unstable. I wasn't myself. Still, her team insisted she had to smile, dance, pretend everything was fine. In the dressing rooms, they gave her an outfit she had never approved, a shiny bra and very short shorts. She refused, asked for another garment. "That doesn't fit me," she said, and the answer was direct. "Put it on like that, it's perfect." They pushed her toward the stage. The lights turned on, the music began, and Britney, still trying to understand what happened the night before, had to face millions of eyes alone. The lights turned on, and Britney stood there, paralyzed. Each second seemed eternal. "I tried to dance, tried to follow the steps," she recounted, "but I was so out of myself that I could barely move." What should have been the renaissance of the pop princess in front of the cameras became a grotesque spectacle. But for Britney, that wasn't a stumble, it was sabotage. They made sure to see me fail, and there he was. Diddy sitting in the audience with a calm smile on his face. Britney said she'll never forget that look. It wasn't surprise, it was satisfaction. And then came the massacre. Headlines, memes, TV panelists throwing diagnoses. Britney Spears' public fall was treated as entertainment, but deep down, that was the beginning of a calculated confinement. They humiliated me on purpose, broke me before the world, and used that as an excuse to lock me up. The room fell into absolute silence when she looked at Diddy directly. "You started this, and now I'm the one ending it." That was no longer an artist giving testimony, it was a woman on a war footing. "I didn't collapse alone," she said. "They disarmed me piece by piece," and then came the names Lou, Rob and Greenhill, Tristar Entertainment, names that for years floated around her story, now resonated out loud under oath. Hearing them, Diddy's lawyers tensed up. They knew what was coming. Right after the 2007 VMAs, Britney's phone exploded with calls. But they weren't supportive, they were reproaches. Her father, Jamie, a man named Larry, and a woman who until then was unknown, Elle Taylor, said she was losing control, that she needed help. But they were already talking about taking control of my life just weeks after that night. Elle Taylor spoke with rehearsed calm. Britney said she didn't sound like someone worried. She sounded like someone who already knew exactly what was coming. And then the consultations began. Psychiatric evaluations, internments in clinics that Britney didn't even remember approving. And at each stage there were Lou and Robin, always close, always watching. According to her, all that wasn't treatment, it was a test, a simulation of what they would later implement as definitive. They were rehearsing what they would later call conservatorship. It was at that moment that the room's temperature dropped sharply. Britney revealed what many speculated, but had never heard directly from her. I discovered that Lou Taylor had already worked with Sean Holmes. She showed a photo, a capture of a Hollywood Reporter article, where both appear professionally connected. It wasn't coincidence that I ended up in the hands of the same team that destroyed my freedom. They delivered me to them, and she affirmed days after the VMAs, Diddy and Lou had already talked. My collapse was what they needed to justify the conservatorship, and they set it all up. They said I was unstable, but they were the ones manipulating my every emotion. About Robin Greenhill, Britney was direct. They said she was an accountant. I call her something much darker. My jailer. She recounted that Robin not only supervised everything, but also authorized bank transfers coming from Diddy's accounts toward women, associated with the circle, payments that are now linked to sex trafficking accusations, but the worst was yet to come. Britney described the treatment centers she was forced to go through, places that said they were for rehabilitation, but seemed like indoctrination camps. They stuffed me with medications until I could barely speak. They took her to a facility in the Caribbean, then sent her to Malibu, and finally placed her back home, but under constant surveillance. Her movements were timed, her words monitored. I wasn't living, I was surviving during all that time. She had no control over her money, her schedule, or her own thoughts. The only constant faces were Tristar representatives and lawyers hired by her father, all orbiting the same center of power, Elle Taylor. And then, the final blow, one of the medications Britney was forced to take caused severe memory lapses. I didn't remember what day it was. I would stare at the wall for hours. When I asked why they were doing that to me, they said I had signed, but I didn't. One day, they put a paper in front of her. Tristar logo at the top, blank signature line. They said it was for my safety. I was trembling. I signed because I was afraid of losing my children. The next day, the conservatorship was formalized. I wasn't protected, I was imprisoned. She declared with all her words that Elle Taylor diverted hundreds of thousands of dollars from her estate to accounts controlled by Tristar, and that Diddy's financial advisor was copied on several communications. Ask yourselves why my money was linked to the man who gave me that glass. And when Britney tried to resist, refusing a photo shoot, questioning the medications, asking to leave the house, she was punished. More medication, more control, and Diddy. He was aware of everything. He started the show and then watched from afar. Britney's voice lowered, but each phrase continued cutting like a razor. I didn't just lose my freedom, I lost my body, my image, my privacy, and then the most shocking revelation of all. Robin Greenhill and Elle Taylor had total access to Britney's phone, house, and daily life. But it wasn't just monitoring, it was systematic surveillance. They installed cameras in every room, even in my bedroom. I couldn't even close the door. Messages with her children were read. Even the searches she did on Google were tracked. If I searched my own name too many times, they blocked my iPad. Black Box Security, the company hired by her father, worked directly with Tristar. And it was Robin Greenhill who created a mirror iCloud account to follow every click, every breath of Britney. She said she discovered all that thanks to a former employee named Alex Vlasov, someone who risked his safety to reveal the truth. And then came a phrase that chilled the room. They didn't just monitor me, they recorded me. The silence was immediate. Britney asked to see the recordings, but they said they were for security. But I know what they were doing, she said. They were gathering evidence of my fragility to keep me quiet. According to Britney, one of those recordings showed the backstage of the VMA rehearsal when she collapsed and murmured, "I can't do this. Something's wrong with me." That video would have been delivered to her own legal team as proof that she was unstable. She also mentioned the night of the party with Diddy. She asked if there were security images. They said no, but today she believes the video exists and was used. Britney looked straight at Diddy. "You said you wanted to help me, but the one who ended up locked in a room was me. The one who lost 14 years of life was me." Then she addressed the jury. "I know what you think, that I was out of control, that I needed help, but that's what they wanted you to see. The clips, the collapses, the memes. None of that was me. That was what they did to me." With those words, she closed the folder in front of her, but it was clear that was just the introduction. Her voice changed as she entered the darkest chapter of the story. The room seemed to darken as Britney described the night when, according to her, everything was taken from her. Her freedom, her reputation, her voice. Everything began at the Pure nightclub. "You know what's worse than losing your mind?" she asked. "Having someone convince you that you lost it when he was the one who broke you." She related waking up the morning of the VMA, September 9th, 2007, with a trembling body, without coordination, weak, and with a confused mind. "I wasn't hungover. I was manipulated." After the presentation, for which she was ridiculed around the world, she was taken directly to the hotel. There, she received the first direct call from Elle Taylor. "You need structure," she remembered the calm voice. "We can help you." Lou offered treatment and image management, but there were conditions. Within a week, the legal documents began to change. Power over her life was transferred. People she had never hired began controlling her health and finances. At a key point in the testimony, Britney said she later learned of a call made by Diddy to Elle Taylor right after the VMAs. "He said I was lost, that the public had already seen what they needed to see." She paused. "Everything was very fast. One night, one presentation, and suddenly my life was no longer mine." She also revealed that someone from the venue tried to help her that night, someone who would have witnessed her collapse backstage, but that person could never contact her. Britney affirmed that Diddy had connections with all the major media that covered the event. That's why the narrative changed so quickly, from a bad night to lost control. And that was the narrative that justified everything that came after. I didn't go crazy. The courthouse remained motionless. Some jurors had teary eyes. Britney leaned forward for the first time. Her hands were steady, and then she said, "Diddy wasn't just a guest at the VMAs, he was the architect." Then she revealed something nobody expected. "For years they told me there was no video of that night, but it was a lie. I saw it." According to her, in the last months of the conservatorship, a former Tristar employee contacted her anonymously. That person claimed to have seen raw, unedited footage from the night of September 8th, 2007, when Britney went to Diddy's party at the Pure nightclub. The recording, according to the whistleblower, was never published, never mentioned in any investigation, never registered by the hotel. Cameras, because as Britney told, those images didn't go through hotel security, they went straight to Diddy. In the video, she appears dancing briefly, drinking from a glass handed by a man in a gray suit. She remembers him, didn't know his name at that moment, but years later recognized him in a photo as one of Diddy's assistants. In the video, Britney starts to stagger, then sits visibly disoriented. A group of men surrounds her shortly after they take her out of frame. The recording ends there, but it's enough, she told the jury. It shows I wasn't in control. It shows I didn't leave that club by my own will. She related that this video was shown to Robin Greenhill and other Tristar members not to help her, but to be filed as insurance, as proof that Britney Spears wasn't capable. They didn't destroy that tape, she said. They kept it as a trophy. Then came another terrifying revelation. The whistleblower said that Tristar and its affiliates had dozens of similar recordings, not just of Britney, but of other artists. They recorded girls at parties, hotels, bathrooms. Britney's voice broke and Diddy had access to everything. He didn't just record me, he kept me. She stared at the jury. "Now you understand why I couldn't leave. Because every time I tried to speak, they had something to use against me." That VMA presentation wasn't a breakdown. It was evidence they used to lock me up. Then Britney looked at Diddy for the first time that day, and you let it all happen. You let it happen, and now you're not going to hide behind your money and your champagne anymore. Her final testimony didn't come with trembling. It came with rage, a clear, firm, unbreakable rage. And I want it to be very clear. For the record, she began, I was never crazy. I was caged. Britney looked at the judge, then at the jury. They made me a mockery. They said I was unstable, and when I asked for help, they told the world it was just another breakdown. She paused, but I wasn't breaking. I was begging for someone to listen to me. She told that after the conservatorship was established, she began living under constant surveillance. Every call was recorded, every pill was administered by others' orders. They took away her children, and everything she earned went straight to a network of companies and managers with something in common, Tristar, and through them the direct connection with Diddy. I lost millions of dollars in that legalized prison, she said. They said it was for my protection, but the only thing they protected was their own system. Even after the end of the conservatorship, she revealed she didn't feel safe to speak. They said Diddy had people, that if I said anything, I would disappear again. So I stayed quiet until now. Then something happened that nobody expected. Britney took from her pocket a crumpled piece of paper with worn edges, a handwritten note dated 2009. She explained to the court that she was never allowed to send it. I wrote this for Diddy. I was 27 years old. I was still trying to understand how someone who barely knew me had such a devastating role in my life. And then, with a firm voice, she read, I hope it was worth it. Everything they promised you in exchange for destroying me. I don't know if you'll ever admit it, but I know what I saw. I saw it in your face the night you toasted with me before the VMAs. You knew it was a trap and still you smiled. The room fell into absolute silence. Not even Diddy moved. Britney carefully folded the note and put it back in her pocket. I'm not here for money. I'm not doing this for fame. I do it because my children deserve to know the truth. They deserve to know their mother didn't fail. She was sabotaged. She turned to the judge. For 14 years, I begged for someone to listen to me. Now that you've listened, please don't turn your back on me again. And with that, Britney Spears stood up, thanked the court, and left the room. Not as a pop icon, but as a woman who finally told the story they tried to bury. Diddy didn't say a word because for the first time, he was the one being watched. There's still much to reveal about this case. The truth can't stay buried forever. Like if you want justice, like the video, share it to spread the truth, and subscribe to not miss the next chapters. Your presence here is what keeps this investigation alive. Comment what you think. We read everything. The story isn't over yet.